Yeah, so I've got to talk to you about our last visit on Coyote Pass.
This is like an area that I grew up in. I flourish in this space.
You like it here?
I do.
Christine started going, hey, I want to move. As soon as that law changed, she was like, I want to move back to Utah. Would you be just as happy? Could you be just as happy in Utah?
No, I'm really not. I mean, at this point, I would just be like, you guys give me the property and you can move. Like, that's how I feel.
You can go. Be in Utah, do your thing. I don't care.
Hey guys, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. I'm totally dressed now. I'm ready to go. Let's talk about Sister Wives. Okay, so can we just talk for a second? Just real quick. Who watched the first episode? Y'all know after all this time that I usually do a full recap. And I don't know if I'm going to do that. Well, we'll see. I'll probably do the recap. But I just want to talk about last night's episode. So is this a recap video? I don't know. It could be. Last night was episode 1, season 16. Even though the show's not been on for 16 years, it's season 16. So anyways, because I think some years they do 2 seasons, whatever. So last night we come right back to the place where we left, where they're still at the lot and they're still talking about what they're going to do with the properties. And this is right after Christine has been crying about what happened and how she doesn't want to live there. She wants to move to Utah and everyone's kind of poo-pooed it. And she's like, she has her meltdown. She comes back, sits down. They all acknowledge that she's sad and they give her some time and breath. And even Janelle's like sympathetic and Kody wants to figure out what they're going to do with the property and how it's going to be divided, which by the way, the lots have already been divided. And I just want to remind you guys that on the show, this episode, they talk about subdividing it into 5 lots. Today, it's still not in 5 lots. So I don't know if this was all for show because when you literally go to the property records, in Coconino County, it's still sitting in 4 lots. So whatever, this could have just been for the show. Anyway, I was also watching this episode, wondering like, can you really subdivide? I'm guessing there might be like a rule as far as how big the lots are in that area. Maybe they have to be 4 acres and like dividing 2 into 1. It just seemed weird. Anyways, so once they are leaving the lot, Christine basically says that she and Kody have like such an estranged relationship that there's no touching, no talking, basically no intimacy. Like they spend no time together and she didn't want to stay in a situation where she was like still married to someone this estranged.
But I never wanted the kind of marriage that I have now. I never wanted to be so estranged and have extremely limited physical contact. Not even hand-holding.
She went as far as describing her marriage as sad. Once Christine and everyone leaves the property, then Kody decides that he is going to go and do a temperature check by talking to some of the wives. Now, it's weird because in this episode, he only talks to Janelle and he only talks to Robyn. He actually does not talk to Meri, which I thought was odd. So maybe we'll see that in next week's episode. I don't know. But in this week's episode, he confronts Janelle and says that, you know, Christine really wants to move to Utah and I would really love to go back to Utah, but you know, I'm here and I just, you know, I don't want to move. And Janelle basically says to him, why don't you guys just give me the property and I'll stay here and you guys can leave.
Okay, I still don't want to go.
Okay.
I really don't. I would really be like, you guys leave me here.
I've had 3 of these 4 women threaten to leave me for a significant part of the marriages.
So Janelle's position is, I'm not moving. There's nothing for me in Utah. There's no way you're going to make me move to Utah. And if you move to Utah, I'm going to stay. I'll take your property. I'll do what I want with the property. That's that. So she is like going on and on about how Kody seems to be too sympathetic for Christine. And really Kody's just saying like he doesn't want Christine to feel like she's getting the bus rolled over on her. And, you know, long story short, when it's all said and done, Janelle says, no, I don't want to move. And Christine says, I want to move. And then he calls them 2 princesses that are fighting with ultimatums. And he also says that these wives have all threatened to leave him. 3 of his wives have threatened to leave him for years.
For me. Ultimately, what's happening in my life now as this unfolds is 2 princesses given ultimatums.
So I'm guessing that's Janelle and Meri and Christine. So the go-to here seems to be if they don't get what they want, which I'm guessing is a big struggle, because who wants to share your life decisions with somebody else you may or may not like? They threaten to leave. And then he calls them princesses. Gross. And they go over to Christine's house and they have a conversation about the holidays. And Kody basically says that like they're not going to have Christmas together because of COVID. And Janelle's just like, well, if you're not going to have Christmas with me, I'm going to go to North Carolina and I'm going to spend it with my kids, Maddie and her grandkids. Janelle just can't understand why the family is not going to get together. Like, how long are they going to do this? And Christine basically just sits there and she's like faking it, not even acknowledging anything, not even saying anything. In fact, she's so annoyed about being there. She basically says that she has to fake it the whole time. And so she's just like numb, totally numb, like nothing coming out of her mouth.
Hi, I love your shirt.
Pretend. That's the word I'm looking for. I have to pretend.
Should I put my mask on?
And then Meri is just sort of like not really saying anything either. And then Janelle says that, you know, Hunter has been home and he hasn't gotten to see Robyn. And then Robyn, she gets all kinds of snotty and she's just like, well, Hunter's never called me. This is what she says in her interview. Like, well, I haven't heard from Hunter. And if he really wanted to come here in social distance, he could call me. Like, okay, Janelle, like, why are you even bringing that up?
To be honest, I mean, like, Janelle's saying this about Hunter, and I'm just like, well, he hasn't asked to come over and visit outside. So if he wanted to come over and we just sit outside socially distanced, I'd be like, yeah, bring it on. That'd be great.
So during this whole conversation, let's just say two wives talk, Robyn and Janelle. Nobody else says a word. Nothing. Okay, sounds good. Next. Kody and Robyn sit down about Utah. And he tells Robyn that, you know, he needs to come talk to her about Christine's decision to want to move to Utah. And Robyn feels like blindsided because she felt like it was just this like idea. She didn't realize that it was like this whole thing. She just thought it was like this, maybe she's just toying around with it. But Kody wants her to understand like Christine is very serious about this. And Robyn basically says that she's not moving. She doesn't want to be a transient family. She said when she moved there, she didn't want to be a transient family, that her kids were good living there. And Kody brings up the fact that her parents live there. And she says, you know, I would love to live there. My mom's there, my dad's there. Like, I would love to live there. I grew up in polygamy. But then she also talks about how when she was growing up in polygamy, she had to hide who she was because of the whole connotation of being a polygamist and the negative things like child brides and welfare fraud and all kinds of other frauds. And she doesn't want her kids to live like that. She said that she had to hide herself and that she didn't join clubs and that she didn't live like authentically herself because she was constantly afraid of being judged. So she doesn't feel like it's fair to the kids, especially the younger ones like Truly, Savannah, and her kids, to have to be forced to move back to a place where they could be judged for being who they are. And she also says that, you know, she made this choice to go there and she just doesn't want to keep moving. And she's like fighting with Kody about it.
Yes.
I'm
I'm
really
so
not.
frustrated that we're constantly bringing up, where should we go? I'm like, we got to find a place and make it home.
No, I'm okay.
So then after Kody talks to her, he basically feels like, okay, well, I need to talk to Meri. And so we're going to have to tell Christine that we're not moving to Utah. And then Robyn starts almost like crying about how, you know, like, I don't want you to tell her that all of her sister wives don't want to go to Utah, so she doesn't get to go to Utah. Maybe you need to soften things.
Because
Maybe there's something you need to figure out a way to say it to her without
Right.
making it about her
I can
sister
see
wives
that.
voting against what she wants.
Okay.
Then she gets really sensitive to the fact that obviously she and Christine are not in a close relationship and that she voted against her. And so she wants Kody to like sort of take the heat for this decision so that she doesn't look like the bad guy. Got it?
Yeah, but it's like if you're not in a close relationship with a sister wife and she didn't vote for what you wanted, that's not easy.
Ooh, I understand. Thank you for the tip.
So she basically like in a lot of ways cries and yells and sobs to Kody about how she's not going to move. And Cody's like, okay, yes, Robyn, you are correct. We're not moving. So they all talk about how it's like everything is done in a family as a majority rules. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. So then the next scene, after he decides that, okay, we're going to go with what Robyn says, and he doesn't even talk to Meri. Weird. But obviously by the time he gets Robyn's vote, it doesn't really matter what Meri wants because, let's be honest, they already have the majority. So then they decide to go out to the property, and Kody has this wild idea that he's going to subdivide it, and he's going to turn 4 lots into 5. And remember how Meri and him were fighting like a couple years ago about being in the trees? Well, now he wants to put Meri in the trees again, and Christine in the trees. And he wants to put Meri and Christine in the 2 smallest lots. I'm not even kidding you. 2 acres. And then Janelle and Robyn will both get 4-acre lots. And the reason why he says this justifiably is because Janelle wants to have she wants to have greenhouses. And so she can have this property that has access to the pond, and it will be good for Janelle's greenhouses. He makes no understanding as to why Robyn gets another 4-acre property. Nothing. No reason. Nada. No arguments. And then he's going to put Christine and Meri on lots that are heavily wooded. And his explanation is that the wooded lots have a higher value than the non-wooded lots, which is, if you know anything about properties, that's a whole hunk of bull crap. If you're going to buy property, ones that have woods, while they sometimes can be more expensive and have a higher value, it also means that it's more expensive to build on them. So sometimes they actually have a lower property value because you have to spend more money, and it's more inconvenient to the buyer to actually have to clear the property for that. Because you're not going to keep all of that woods. I mean, if you've got only 2 acres and you're going to build a house and you want to have a yard, you're not going to keep all of those woods. You're not. So he has them in these woods, which is really bizarre. And then as they're walking the property, you know, eventually Christine just gives into it, and she's like, I'm not going to fight it. This is fine. This is great. Yeah, this is totally great. And they're walking along the properties, and then Kody tries to like shush them and whistle at them. And
So Kody wants a dog house, Freudian slip. Kody wants a house, his own house.
Meri thinks that Kody's already made the decisions on what the lots are going to look like. And then Meri actually tries to stick up for Christine at one point in time and says, like, are you sure you want to do this, Kody? Like, the lots that you're doing here, these aren't really like, this isn't really like what other people have wanted or needed. And Christine at one point is just like, whatever, I give in, I give up. And then he starts, like, as the women start sort of discussing what it is that they want to do, he like whistles at them like they're not allowed to talk things through. And then Christine is like, I'm done.
Well, yeah. Hey!
What the holy hell? Did you just whistle at us?
We're trying to talk to him.
And him whistling at me?
Well, yeah. Hey!
That's insulting and rude. So everything that he says right now, I'm frankly not going to listen to. I don't care.
Then after she looks at the layout of the property, after he like whistles and she's done and she actually looks at how the layout of this land will work, she doesn't like how it's laid out because she feels like the family is going to be really disconnected and it's not going to be like the cul-de-sac that they had when they were in Las Vegas. She feels like it's going to be parceled into areas where they don't really have to interact, and you'll have Robyn and Janelle over here, and then she and Meri are over in like a corner, sort of like put out in the corner, and then Kody gets the pond. And then Meri even jokes at one point that if she got the property with the pond, maybe Kody would come over to her property more often. Meri actually admits that she literally never sees Kody. Shocking. So what I learned in this episode, in the short amount of time that I've given this rundown to you, is that there's multiple wives that want to leave Kody, that Christine is super unhappy. We already know she's left Kody. And that Kody was playing favorites, basically, and then trying to manipulate the wives to believe that wooded property would be more expensive than non-wooded lots. Makes no sense. No sense. No sense. You can always like freaking like plant a tree. People like space. People want space. Space. Anyways, he played favorites. He allowed Robyn's voice of I'm not moving, and Janelle saying, well, if you leave, just give me the property and go. Like, I don't want to be with you then. And unfortunately, since they all have to assert their independence by, threatening to leave, it just creates a really unhealthy dynamic. If you have to threaten your husband to leave every single time you get into an argument because you don't get what you want, it's going to create conflict. And what I noticed in this more than anything is that even though Janelle and Christine play friends on Instagram and stuff, I truly do wonder like how close they actually are, because in reality, it seems like Janelle doesn't necessarily have the interests of Christine in her heart. She might be sympathetic to what Christine is going through. I just don't think they have the kind of relationship that is what we think it is. I don't think they're as close as we think they are, because I feel like she would have been a lot more sensitive to the situation had she known the gravity of it, maybe. I don't know. But she also seems to have her own desires and her own wants, which is impossible to be good friends with someone when you're literally sharing the same husband. It's impossible. It would be impossible. Another thing that I learned is that Meri and Kody's relationship is still nothing. Oh, wait, I already knew that. And another thing I learned is that if Robyn cries, Kody gives into her. Oh, wait, I already knew that too. So really, we're still talking about the land. We're still talking about the property, and Christine wants to leave Kody. So that's this week's installment of Sister Wives. Was there any groundbreaking things to you? What did you notice? What did you not notice? Tell me in the comments below. Bye, guys.